Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So the judge has made his ruling today about the Mountain West Conference, and I guess it's as we suspected it would be. The judge has decided that the conference will go ahead as planned with the transgender player Blaire Fleming. So on X, Riley Gaines posted the following announcing the judgment. Last week, a Biden appointed federal judge held a hearing for the volleyball players suing the Mountain West Conference. He barred the female athletes from testifying. Red flag number 1. Today he ruled in favour of the less than mediocre man. The girls plan to appeal the ruling. So I'm glad that they do plan on appealing the ruling. As it stands, the conference will go ahead as planned. I guess the judge determined that there was no need to disqualify Fleming from competing in the women's tournament, and probably thought of the huge ramifications for making those adjustments. Making the adjustments to the wins and losses and the forfeits and all of that. Huge ramifications when ultimately this person is allowed by the NCAA to compete in a women's tournament. So it really does need to go back to the NCAA, because until that is adjusted, until they are held accountable, this certainly will continue. So remember, the judge is Kato Crews, who is a Biden nominee in a Democrat-run Senate. And although I try to remain optimistic, because the judge said that the plaintiffs can use he, him pronouns if they want to, but he said he was going to use she, her pronouns. And I try to look at that as if to say, well, you know, that's a sign that perhaps he's not as deranged, because I have heard of court cases where the judge insists that everybody refers to the trans-identified male with she, her pronouns. The court case in Connecticut, for example.
They had to race against these boys posing as girls because it's the Connecticut state policy. Connecticut, along with some almost 24 states, have a policy that requires you to be able to race in the sport and in the league that aligns with your gender identity as opposed to biological sex, which is a blatant violation of Title IX. It is a violation of girls' equal protection rights. All of this is going to get reversed. It's going to get reversed thanks to Trump and thanks to the courts and thanks to this U.S. Supreme Court. So these girls filed a lawsuit trying to say all of that. And this jerk judge rejected the lawsuit, threw it out. And let me just give you a little color about this guy's ruling, which came down in April of 2021, right around the time when they first came on the show. Alliance Defending Freedom came out and said that this judge would not allow them, as the lawyers for these two girls, to refer to the biological boys as biological boys. The judge required them to call the biological boys females, which the lawyers made the point that obscures the entire issue that has brought us into court here, Your Honor. The whole question is, should biological boys be allowed to play in girls' sports? And here are all the reasons why they shouldn't. It completely muddies the waters to say, should females be allowed to compete against females in girls' sports? And this is something we've been talking about on this show for a long time, as you know, which is they try to control the language to already win the argument. If you cede the language, you've already lost the argument, especially on this issue. And therefore, you must fight over the language, including pronouns, even if it makes you feel impolite. If you don't, you're hashtag part of the problem. And this judge was hashtag part of the problem. He dismissed their case. So they appealed up to the Second Circuit. And when you first appeal, you get a 3-judge panel from the Court of Appeals. That panel ruled against the girls again. But the girls were not done. And Alliance Defending Freedom was not done. They appealed to the Second Circuit en banc, which means the entire Second Circuit, all of the judges who otherwise would make up random 3-judge panels, all of them hear the case and they agreed to take it. And guess what happened? They reversed. They won. The girls won in front of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which is huge. And then it went back down, as it must, to this Judge Chatagny. So it goes back to this judge. And what happened last week was, reading here from Just the News, a chastened Judge Chatagny switched his stance and ruled that the amended complaint did plausibly allege disparate treatment under the law based on the female athlete's sex, saying the defendants are indeed potentially liable for discrimination under Title IX, and that the plaintiffs may be indeed able to recover damages, including attorney's fees and costs, depending on what happens in the course of discovery. Here, listen to this. Unlike in 2021, the judge's ruling is replete with references to biological sex. He even twice used the phrase biological males, which years earlier he had deemed needlessly provocative. In this case, how about that?
To me, it sounded like in that case, the judge was personally offended by the use of he, him pronouns when referring to transgender athletes. So in this situation, I thought, well, at least the judge is not policing people's language. But no, the judge ruled against the female athletes. And many people are not surprised. But I'm glad to hear that they haven't given up. Now, I wasn't aware that the judge spent 30 minutes discussing the pronoun issue at the emergency hearing on Thursday. 30 minutes discussing whether to call a male athlete he, him, or she, her. That should take 10 seconds. The person's male. There's nothing wrong with people saying he, him. It's as simple as that. So yeah, that is certainly not a good sign. The judge also decided that Utah State University cannot join the lawsuit because they had, quote, failed to meet their burden to show irreparable harm, a likelihood of success on the merits, or that the balance of harms or equities is in their favour. And I was also a little bit optimistic about the fact that the judge didn't try to play games and say, well, we don't know if this person is transgender. You know, a lot of media outlets are doing that at the moment. They're saying allegedly transgender. But the judge said, no, you have not once denied that you have a transgender player on your roster, that Fleming is male. So let's just take that for what it means. No defendant disputed that SJSU's rosters a trans woman volleyball player, Crews wrote. And what is very concerning and what is very upsetting, that the judge is already applying the changes to Title IX that the Biden administration implemented in August. Now, the changes are about access to women-only spaces on campus and allowing transgender people to have access to those spaces based on gender identity, not based on biology. So if a trans-identified male wants to use the women's locker rooms, wants to use the women's showers, enter into a woman-only dormitory, for example, according to the changes to Title IX, they are allowed to do so. And preventing them from doing so could within itself be considered harassment. So basically, if women object to males entering into their spaces, they could be guilty of harassment. They could be guilty of bullying the transgender person. Now, Title IX hasn't officially mandated transgender athletes competing in women's sports on college campuses. It hasn't really addressed that yet. Many of us believe that was just because the election was coming up and they didn't want to go too far. But obviously, if men who identify as women can enter into women's spaces based on gender identity, it goes without saying that the same will apply to sports. So despite acknowledging that Fleming is male, Crews wrote that Title IX must include protection for trans-identifying people, citing precedents set by the 10th Circuit and the Supreme Court. The movant's Title IX theory raised in this case directly conflicts with Title IX's prohibition on discrimination against trans individuals. The rationale is consistent with the Biden administration's rewrite of Title IX that changed the language in Title IX from sex, which is biological, to gender identity, which is not rooted in science. Crews' ruling that forfeits by several conference teams will continue to count as losses for them and wins for San Jose State means the Spartans will be the number 2 seed in the tournament that starts on Wednesday. They'll get a bye in the first round and play Friday in the semi-finals. The threatened injury to the Movants, if an injunction issues, is outweighed by the MWC's interest in holding the upcoming MWC tournament without an 11th hour shake-up to its currently planned structure. The relief requested with the emergency motion would risk confusion and append months of planning and would prejudice at minimum defendants and other teams participating in the tournament depending on the results of any reseeding. To be honest, I thought that would be the main consideration. Can the judge be bothered to turn everything upside down, like make the forfeits no longer count as losses, take away wins, change the records, change the positions of every team? That would be a huge ask upon the Mountain West Conference. And quite frankly, it doesn't seem that the judge can be bothered to go down that route, especially when the NCAA allows males to participate in women's competitions, especially with the changes to Title IX that show that this administration is in favour of the likes of Fleming and other transgender athletes competing in the wrong category and perpetuating injustices against women. Clearly, the judge wasn't willing to cause all of this upheaval when the federal government allows it, when the NCAA allows it, and even promotes it and is in support of it. So remember, the next part of the lawsuit is the infringement upon the First Amendment rights and also upon a Title IX violation. So let's hope that the judge agrees that putting pressure on these women not to forfeit, not to object to playing against a male athlete is an infringement upon their First Amendment rights. And let's hope the judge agrees that as of now, Title IX still affords rights to women to have fair treatment when it comes to participating in sports, regardless of sex. So the main thing is that these girls are not giving up, they're going to appeal, and there are still other aspects of the lawsuit that need to be addressed, that need to be examined and ruled on. Icons is also raising money for this lawsuit. I will leave the link below, but if you can't give anything, let's just put our support behind these girls, leave messages of encouragement in the comments, and let's hope that they get a favourable judgment as this case progresses. So Boise State goes against Utah State on Wednesday in the beginning round of the Mountain West tournament. It's unclear if either Boise State or Utah will opt not to play SJSU. Speaking of the judgment, SJSU said, San Jose State University will continue to support its student athletes and reject discrimination in all forms. All San Jose State University student athletes are eligible to participate in their sports under NCAA and Mountain West Conference rules. We are gratified that the court rejected an 11th hour attempt to change those rules. Our team looks forward to competing in the Mountain West Volleyball Tournament this week. CSU statement said, the California State University fully supports its student athletes and their right to play and compete in the sports they love. The CSU does not tolerate discrimination of any kind, on or off the court. We applaud the court's decision and will be cheering on the San Jose State University volleyball team as they continue to compete for a championship in the Mountain West Conference Tournament. Now let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves and God willing, I will see you in the next video.